A single father lost his VIP seat to a wealthy passenger. 5 minutes later, every person on that plane was ordered to leave. But this story is not really about a seat. It is about what happens when a quiet man in a worn coat is judged before anyone bothers to read his name. That morning, Caleb Morgan stood beneath the cold cabin lights holding his 10-year-old daughter's trembling hand while strangers watched him being humiliated. Outside the window, rain streaked across the runway. Behind him, a woman in a designer suit settled into the seat he had legally purchased. Caleb could have ended the confrontation with one sentence. He chose not to. What followed would expose how easily power can corrupt ordinary decisions and why one stranger's courage can change everything. Stay until the end, like the video, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The truth about that morning began long before Caleb Morgan stood in the aisle of a crowded aircraft with his daughter's hand trembling inside his own. It began at 4:12 in a quiet townhouse outside Charlotte, North Carolina, where the only light came from the stove clock and the yellow lamp above the kitchen sink. Rain tapped softly against the windows. Caleb stood at the counter in a faded gray shirt, spreading peanut butter across 2 slices of bread while the coffee machine released a low mechanical sigh behind him. He moved quietly, not because anyone had asked him to, but because silence had become a habit in the Morgan house. For nearly 2 years, every early morning had carried the same careful rhythm. Open the blinds, start the coffee, pack Lucy's lunch, check her school bag. Look at the empty chair across the table and pretend for one more second that it was only empty because Hannah had gone upstairs. Caleb finished the sandwich and wrapped it in wax paper. He placed it beside a smaller bag filled with apple slices, then glanced toward the dining table. Lucy sat beneath the hanging light in blue pajamas and mismatched socks. Her dark hair had escaped the loose braid she had made the night before. Small strands fell across her face as she leaned over a model airplane built from thin wood paper and pieces of painted plastic. One wing was still loose. She pressed it into place, held it for several seconds, then carefully released her fingers. The wing tilted again. Lucy sighed. Caleb dried his hands and walked over. "Still fighting you, it keeps leaning. Maybe it has personality, it has bad balance." Caleb pulled out the chair beside her and examined the model. The airplane was not the kind sold in a kit. Lucy had designed most of it herself. The wings could shift angles during landing, controlled by a simple mechanism built from thread-small gears and 2 pieces of an old mechanical pencil. The right wing carried the word Hannah in tiny blue letters. Caleb saw it every time he looked at the plane. He never mentioned it. Lucy reached for the glue. "I can fix it, I know. You always say that before you help." Caleb smiled faintly. "I am a very predictable father. You make the same sandwiches too. That is consistency. That is peanut butter." He laughed under his breath and held the wing steady while Lucy applied another careful line of glue. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. The rain grew harder against the glass. On the wall behind them hung a photograph from 3 summers earlier. Hannah stood barefoot on a beach in Maine, her red hair tangled by the wind. Lucy was on her shoulders, laughing with both arms raised. Caleb stood beside them, one hand around Hannah's waist, and the other reaching up to keep Lucy from falling. It was the kind of photograph that looked ordinary until ordinary life disappeared. Lucy stared at it. Caleb noticed her eyes pause on her mother's face. "You do not have to present tomorrow," he said. Lucy kept her attention on the wing. "I want to. You can still change your mind." "I am not changing my mind. We could attend the memorial and come home." "I said I want to present." Her voice came out sharper than she intended. Caleb did not correct her. Lucy swallowed and lowered her eyes. "Mom helped me choose it. I remember. She said birds do not land with their wings in the same position they use to fly." She was right. She said machines should learn from things that already know how to survive. Caleb looked at the little airplane between them. Hannah had said things like that. She could turn a homework assignment into a conversation about courage. She could turn a walk through the park into a lesson about weather patterns. She could turn a broken toaster into an excuse to show Lucy how heat moved through metal. Tomorrow's science showcase in Boston had been Hannah's idea. She had found the application months before she became too sick to sit at the kitchen table. Lucy had finished the project after her mother died. Caleb pressed the wing gently into place. "Then we presented." Lucy nodded. And tonight we go to the memorial. Even if it is hard, especially if it is hard. She studied his face. Caleb had become skilled at hiding exhaustion, but children had a way of seeing through careful expressions. You do not have to talk if you do not want to, Lucy said. At the memorial, she nodded. Uncle David said they might ask you to say something. Caleb looked toward the photograph again. I will decide when we get there. You could talk about the beach. That is a good memory. Mom dropped her sunglasses in the water. She blamed me. You pushed her. I barely touched her. She said you pushed her. Your mother believed in dramatic storytelling. Lucy smiled. The sound of it changed the room. Caleb had learned not to chase those moments. If he reacted too quickly, Lucy sometimes became aware that she had laughed and pulled herself back into sadness as if happiness were a form of disloyalty. So he simply nodded at the repaired wing. That should hold. Lucy lifted the model carefully. It is straight, I told you. You helped. Also true. Caleb stood and returned to the counter. His phone lit up beside the coffee machine. 3 missed calls. 2 messages from Jonathan Price. 1 from a member of the board. The latest message appeared on the screen. The committee needs your final approval before noon. We cannot move without your signature. Caleb turned the phone face down. Lucy had seen the light. Work, yes. Are they coming with us? No. Not even Mr. Price, not even Mr. Price. She looked relieved. Caleb poured coffee into a travel mug. This trip belongs to us. Lucy hugged the model airplane against her chest. Good. Upstairs, Caleb dressed in a pale blue shirt and a charcoal wool coat that had softened at the elbows after years of use. The coat had been a gift from Hannah during their first winter in North Carolina. She had chosen it because she said every man needed one coat that made him look responsible. The lining had been repaired twice. The left pocket had a small tear near the seam. Caleb could have replaced it many times. He never had. He opened the top drawer of his dresser and removed a narrow silver chain. Hannah's wedding ring hung from it. He placed the chain around his neck and tucked the ring beneath his shirt. For the first year after her death, he had worn his own wedding band on his hand. Then one morning, Lucy asked if wearing it meant he was still married. Caleb had not known how to answer. He moved both rings to the chain that evening. Now they rested together over his heart, hidden from everyone except the daughter who knew they were there. When he came downstairs, Lucy was waiting by the door in a cream sweater and jeans. Her purple backpack looked too large against her narrow shoulders. You have the boarding passes, she asked. In my wallet, model airplane. In your hands, presentation cards in the front pocket, Mom's picture. Lucy touched the side pocket of her backpack. Here. Caleb picked up their small suitcase. Then we are ready. Outside, the rain had softened into mist. Charlotte was still dark, the streets washed silver beneath the lamps. Caleb loaded the suitcase into the trunk and opened the rear door for Lucy. She climbed in with the model airplane resting across her knees. As they drove toward the airport, the city slowly woke around them. Delivery trucks moved through wet intersections. A bakery turned on its front lights. A man in a yellow rain jacket walked a dog beneath an umbrella. Lucy rested her forehead against the window. Do you think Boston will have snow? The forecast says maybe. Mom liked snow. Your mother liked looking at snow from inside. She made us go sledding. She stayed at the bottom of the hill with hot chocolate. That still counts. Caleb glanced at her in the mirror. She would be proud of your project. Lucy looked down at the model. You think so? I know so. Traffic thickened near Charlotte Douglas International Airport. Headlights stretched across the wet highway. Caleb's phone rang through the car speakers. Jonathan Price. Caleb declined the call. Lucy raised an eyebrow. You are going to get in trouble. I am the boss. That does not mean you cannot get in trouble. Caleb smiled. That sounds like something your mother would say. It is something she did say. He sent Jonathan a brief message at the next red light. Handle the inspection without me. I am traveling as a customer today. The reply appeared almost immediately. At least let the airport team know you are coming. Caleb did not answer. He had never enjoyed the careful attention that followed his name. Employees stood straighter. Managers appeared from nowhere. Problems disappeared before he reached them. Coffee arrived without being requested. Doors opened. People smiled too quickly. Caleb had spent years building companies before he entered the airline business. He had learned that a title could reveal loyalty, but it could also hide the truth. People behaved well when they knew they were being watched. That morning he wanted to be Lucy's father. Nothing more. They parked in the public garage and crossed the covered walkway toward the terminal. Inside the airport was already crowded. Rolling suitcases clicked over the tile. Announcements echoed from overhead speakers. The smell of coffee, wet coats, and warm bread drifted through the main concourse. A uniformed employee standing near the premium check-in area looked at Caleb, then at the boarding information on his phone. Mr. Morgan Caleb stopped. The employee smiled. "We can escort you through the private entrance." "No, thank you. It would be faster. We are fine here." The employee seemed uncertain. Caleb gave him a polite nod and continued toward the regular security line. Lucy walked beside him. "You could have said yes." "I could have." "Why did you not?" "Because everyone in this line has somewhere important to be." Lucy looked at the family's business travelers, elderly couples, and tired parents waiting beneath the fluorescent lights. "Are we doing another secret inspection?" "No. You said that last time. Last time was a restaurant. You counted how long it took them to help the old man with the walker. I notice things. You write them down." "I remember things. You wrote them down in the car." Caleb looked at her. Lucy smiled slightly. "Fine," he said. "I may notice a few things." At security, an elderly man struggled to lift a heavy bag onto the conveyor belt. Caleb stepped forward. "Let me help." The man nodded gratefully. Together they raised the bag. A security officer waved the next passengers ahead. Lucy waited without complaining. When Caleb rejoined her, she handed him his coat. "You notice people. Most people do." "No. Most people notice themselves." Caleb paused. "That sounds like your mother, too. I have good material." They reached their gate just after 6. Rain moved across the windows in thin gray lines. Beyond the glass ground crews in reflective vests guided baggage carts between aircraft. Lucy chose a seat facing the runway and placed the model airplane on her knees. Caleb sat beside her and opened the paper bag. "Breakfast. You made sandwiches." "It is too early for criticism. You made the same sandwiches." They traveled well. Lucy took one. Caleb handed her the apple slices. His phone vibrated again. He ignored it. A small wheel detached from the model airplane and rolled beneath the row of seats. Lucy gasped. Before Caleb could stand, a woman across the aisle leaned down and reached beneath a metal support. She retrieved the wheel and held it between 2 fingers. "This looks important." She was in her mid-30s with warm brown eyes and dark hair pulled into a loose knot. She wore a navy coat over simple black clothes, and a conference badge was tucked into the outer pocket of her bag. Lucy accepted the wheel. "It is the landing gear. Then I am glad I did not step on it." The woman moved to the empty seat across from them. Passenger jet or experimental aircraft, Lucy studied her carefully. Experimental. What makes it experimental? The wings change angle during landing. The woman nodded as if Lucy had described something genuinely important. "That sounds smarter than the way I get off airplanes." Lucy smiled. Caleb extended his hand. "Caleb Morgan, Emily Carter." Her handshake was warm and direct. She pointed toward the wheel. "I am better with knees than airplanes." "You are a doctor?" Lucy asked. "A pediatric physical therapist. You help children walk. I help them move in whatever way works best for them." Lucy glanced at the small scar across Emily's right hand. Emily noticed. "A very determined patient through a toy truck. Did it hurt a little? Did you get angry?" Emily considered the question. "No." He was scared. Lucy looked down at her model airplane. Sometimes scared people are mean. Sometimes, Emily said. But being scared does not make every mean thing acceptable. Caleb looked at her more closely. There was no performance in her voice. She spoke to Lucy as though the child deserved a complete answer. Emily attached the wheel and handed the plane back. "What is the project called Adaptive Wings? Are you presenting here in Boston? So am I." Lucy brightened. "You are in the science showcase." Emily laughed. "No. Medical conference. Much less exciting." Caleb noticed the wedding ring hanging on the chain beneath his shirt had slipped into view. He tucked it back inside. Emily saw the motion but did not look away awkwardly. Instead, she asked Lucy about the project. For the next several minutes, Lucy explained the wing mechanism with growing confidence. Emily listened closely, asking questions that made Lucy sit straighter. Caleb watched them. He had forgotten how quickly Lucy opened up to women who carried gentleness without pity. The realization brought warmth and pain in equal measure. A boarding announcement sounded. First-class passengers were invited to approach the gate. Emily stood and lifted her bag. "What seat are you in?" Lucy asked. "2C. We are 1A and 1B, then I will be close enough to hear the full presentation." Lucy looked at Caleb. "Can she? If Dr. Carter agrees, Emily is fine." Lucy nodded seriously. "Then you can hear it after takeoff. I would like that." The boarding line moved quickly. At the scanner, Caleb handed over the passes. The gate agent looked at his name. For a moment, her eyes narrowed as if something about it felt familiar. Caleb waited. The scanner beeped green. "Have a good flight, Mr. Morgan." Lucy held the model airplane against her chest as they entered the jet bridge. Emily walked a few steps behind them. Inside the aircraft, the premium cabin glowed beneath soft ceiling lights. Cream leather seats faced wide windows streaked with rain. Caleb placed Lucy's backpack beneath seat 1B. He helped her settle near the aisle so she would not feel trapped against the window. Then he took seat 1A. Emily placed her bag above row 2 and sat behind them. Lucy leaned over the seat. "Do not forget my presentation." "I will not." Caleb fastened his seatbelt and looked through the window. Ground crews moved below. A fuel truck pulled away. For the first time that morning, his shoulders relaxed. Lucy opened her sketchbook and began drawing the wing of the aircraft outside. Emily removed a notebook from her bag. The cabin filled gradually with soft conversation rustling newspapers and the sound of luggage sliding into overhead compartments. Then a sharp voice carried through the jet bridge. "If Summit Crown wants the Blackwell account, someone here needs to understand what priority service actually means." A woman in a fitted white suit stepped into the cabin with an assistant behind her. Her gaze moved past the waiting flight attendant. It stopped on seat 1A, then it settled on Caleb. Vivian Blackwell's gaze moved from Caleb's worn coat to the number above his seat. Then she looked at Monica Hayes. "Why is he sitting there?" The senior flight attendant followed her eyes towards seat 1A. She smiled automatically, the kind of polished expression built through years of difficult passengers and crowded cabins. "May I see your boarding pass?" Ms. Blackwell Vivian did not immediately reach for it. I requested the first row. Her assistant stood behind her in the aisle, holding a black leather case against his chest. He looked young, nervous, and already tired. Monica kept her hand extended. "Your boarding pass, please." Vivian opened a white designer wallet and removed the ticket. She gave it to Monica without looking at her. Caleb watched Monica read it. Seat 3D. There was no confusion in her eyes. She glanced at the boarding pass in Caleb's hand. His showed 1A. Lucy's showed 1B. For one quiet second, the facts rested plainly between them. Monica returned Vivian's ticket. "Mrs. Blackwell, your assigned seat is in row 3. Vivian's face did not change. "No." Monica blinked. "I am sorry I said no." Several passengers stopped arranging their bags. Vivian looked towards seat 3D, then back at Caleb. "That seat is beside the galley. I specifically told your corporate office that I require the front window." Monica lowered her voice. "I understand, but seat 1A has already been assigned." To him, the word carried more contempt than the sentence required. Caleb felt Lucy shift beside him. He rested one hand on the armrest between them. Vivian looked at his shirt, his coat, his old watch. "You expect me to believe he paid for this seat?" Caleb raised his boarding pass. "You do not need to believe it. The ticket confirms it." Vivian turned her eyes toward him for the first time. Up close, she appeared less composed than she had from the jet bridge. Her lipstick was perfect, her white suit uncreased, but a faint line of impatience showed between her brows. "I was not speaking to you. You were speaking about me." Behind Caleb, Emily closed her notebook. Monica glanced toward the boarding line, still moving through the aircraft door. "Ms. Blackwell, perhaps we can discuss another available option." Vivian gave a small laugh. "I already discussed the available option with your sales department." Her assistant opened the leather case and removed a folder. The Blackwell Capital logo was printed in silver across the front. He handed Monica a document. Vivian watched her read it. "My company is reviewing carriers for a nationwide travel agreement," she said. "Your airline is one of 3 finalists." Monica's eyes paused on the name of a senior sales executive. Vivian continued. The agreement covers more than 600 employees, executive travel client transportation, and several international routes. I was assured that Summit Crown understood the level of service attached to that relationship. Caleb saw Monica's shoulders shift. It was a small change, almost invisible. Her professional certainty softened into calculation. She looked at Vivian's document again. Then she looked at Caleb, not at his ticket, at his coat. Lucy noticed it too. "Dad," she whispered. Caleb turned slightly toward her. "You're all right." She nodded, though she did not look convinced. Monica handed the folder back to Vivian's assistant. "Let me review the seat map once more." She tapped her tablet. Caleb could see the screen from where he sat. The cabin layout appeared for a moment. Seat 1A showed his name. Seat 1B showed Lucy's. Seat 3D showed Vivian Blackwell. Monica saw the same thing. Her thumb hovered above the screen. "There may have been a duplicate assignment," she said. Caleb looked at her. There was not. Monica's smile tightened. "Sir, I need a moment to verify the reservation. You just verified it." Emily's voice came from behind them. Monica turned. Emily was standing beside seat 2C. "You looked at both passes," Emily said. "His seat is 1A. Hers is 3D. Please remain seated, ma'am. I am only stating what happened. I am handling the situation." Emily glanced at Lucy, then at Caleb. "Then handle it using the tickets in front of you." A man across the aisle looked down quickly, pretending to read an email on his phone. Vivian studied Emily. "And you are a passenger. Then behave like one." Emily's expression remained calm. I thought that was what he was doing. Lucy lowered her eyes, but Caleb saw the smallest movement at the corner of her mouth. Monica stepped closer to Caleb's seat. "Mr. Morgan, would you mind stepping into the aisle while we resolve this?" "Yes." The answer caught her off guard. "You would mind, my daughter is sitting beside me. I am not leaving her alone while you discuss giving away the seat I purchased. No one is giving anything away." Vivian folded her arms. "This is taking too long." Caleb kept his attention on Monica. "Access the original reservation history. I am already reviewing the system. You are looking at the current seat map. Open the booking record." Monica's eyes narrowed. "Sir, I know how to do my job. Then you know the difference." For the first time, irritation replaced her practiced smile. She tapped the tablet again, turning the screen slightly away from him. Lucy's breathing became shallow. Emily noticed. She stepped into the aisle, keeping a respectful distance. "Lucy." The girl looked back. "Remember what we talked about at the gate?" Lucy shook her head. Emily placed one hand over her own stomach. "Slow breath in. Let your shoulders stay down." Lucy tried. "Good. Now let it out slowly." Monica gave Emily a warning look. "You need to sit down." "She is helping my daughter," Caleb said. "This matter does not involve her. It became her concern when you frightened a child." Vivian sighed loudly. "Oh, for heaven's sake, no one is frightening anyone." Lucy pressed her palms together. Caleb could feel anger rising in him, not hot and explosive, but dense and controlled. He had sat through hostile negotiations, lawsuits, emergency board meetings, and the collapse of companies worth more than most people earned in a lifetime. None of those moments had required as much restraint as watching his daughter try not to cry because a stranger had decided her father looked too poor to tell the truth. Monica stopped tapping. "There appears to be an operational need for seat 1A. Caleb stared at her. "What need? I am not required to discuss internal cabin decisions. You called it a duplicate assignment 30 seconds ago. New information has become available. What information, Mr. Morgan? I am offering you another seat," where Monica looked toward the rear of the aircraft. "There is an available seat in economy." Lucy's head turned sharply. Caleb did not move. "And my daughter, she may remain in 1B. No. If you prefer, we can look for 2 seats after boarding is complete. Together, I cannot guarantee that." Emily's expression hardened. "You are suggesting that a 10-year-old child fly separately from her father." Monica ignored her. Caleb's voice remained quiet. "You are proposing to separate my daughter from her only parent because another passenger does not like her assigned seat. That is not what I said. It is exactly what you said." Vivian stepped closer. "No one is forcing the child to remain here. They can both move." Lucy looked at her. Vivian noticed the girl's eyes but showed no discomfort. Children survive economy class every day. Caleb's fingers tightened around the boarding pass. The issue is not whether my daughter can survive a smaller seat. Vivian smiled faintly. Then perhaps you should stop making this so dramatic. Caleb stood. The movement caused Monica to step back. He was not an especially large man, but there was something in the way he rose that made the cabin quieter. He did not move into the aisle. He simply stood beside Lucy. My daughter and I have confirmed tickets for these seats. You have verified them. You have not identified any safety or operational reason for moving us. You are asking us to surrender our seats because Ms. Blackwell believes her business relationship matters more than our reservation. Monica glanced at the passengers now watching openly. Lower your voice. Caleb had not raised it. I am speaking at the same volume I used when you arrived. You are disrupting boarding. No. The passengers behind Ms. Blackwell cannot pass because she is standing in the aisle. Several people looked toward Vivian. Her assistant shifted uncomfortably and stepped closer to the wall. Vivian's eyes sharpened. Do you have any idea who I am? Caleb looked at her for a moment. Yes. The confidence in her face returned. Then you understand why this needs to be resolved. You are a passenger assigned to seat 3D. Emily looked down, hiding a smile. A few people nearby exchanged glances. Vivian's jaw tightened. Monica touched the communication panel beside the galley. I am calling the terminal manager. Caleb nodded. Ask him to bring the original reservation record. She gave him a cold look and spoke quietly into the phone. Lucy reached for Caleb's hand. He sat again and turned toward her. She was trying not to look at Vivian. Do you want to wait outside? Caleb asked. Lucy shook her head. This is our seat. Yes, then I want to stay. Caleb looked at her carefully. You do not have to prove anything to them. I know. Her voice trembled. I just do not want them to think we lied. Caleb felt something break open inside his chest. He took her hand between both of his. Truth does not become smaller because someone refuses to see it. Lucy nodded, though tears had begun gathering along her lower lashes. Emily remained standing behind them. I can sit with her if you need to speak to the manager, she said. Caleb looked back at her. Thank you. Monica shook her head. No one is changing seats until this is resolved. Emily met her eyes. That is the first reasonable thing you have said. Monica's face flushed. Footsteps sounded in the jet bridge. Derek Lawson entered the cabin carrying a radio and wearing the irritated expression of a man who had already decided the delay mattered more than the reason for it. He looked toward Monica. What is happening? She moved quickly to meet him near the door. Their voices dropped, but not enough. The passenger in 1A is refusing an operational reassignment, Monica said. Caleb watched Derek's face. He did not ask what the operational reason was. He did not ask to see the boarding passes. He glanced first at Vivian, then at the folder held by her assistant. Miss Blackwell, he said. Vivian gave him a brief nod. I have been waiting for someone competent. Derek turned toward Caleb. Mr. Morgan, I am Derek Lawson, Terminal Operations Manager. I understand you have refused a crew instruction. You understand what she told you? Derek's mouth tightened. Are you refusing to move? I am asking you to verify the reservation. Your reservation has been reviewed. Not by you. Derek looked at Monica. She held out the tablet, but he barely examined it. He looked instead at the passengers filling the aisle behind Vivian. We need to complete boarding. Caleb handed him the paper boarding pass. Derek glanced at it. Seat 1A. He handed it back. The airline reserves the right to reassign seats when necessary. What makes it necessary? Operational requirements. What requirement? Derek's voice became firmer. Internal operational decisions are not subject to passenger debate. Emily stepped forward. He is not debating. He is asking you to identify the reason. Derek turned toward her. And you are Emily Carter, seat 2C. I witnessed the entire conversation. This does not concern you. It concerns me when a child is being threatened with separation from her parent. No one has threatened a child. You offered her a seat apart from him. Derek looked at Monica. She answered quickly. We offered options. He rejected them. Emily shook her head. You offered him the choice to leave his daughter here or move them into seats that may not be together. Derek raised one hand. Ma'am, sit down. Emily did not move. Are you giving me a crew instruction? I am instructing you not to interfere. Then I would like your name and employee number. Derek looked at her badge-free coat, then at the phone in her hand. You are welcome to file a complaint after the flight. I'm asking now. Caleb watched Emily. There was no anger in her posture, only steadiness. She did not know who he was. She did not know whether speaking would cost her the flight, her conference, or the money she had spent to travel. She stood anyway. Derek pointed toward her seat. Sit down, or I will remove you from the aircraft as well. The cabin changed. Several passengers who had been watching lowered their eyes. A woman near the galley turned her phone face down. The man across the aisle stopped recording openly and held the device against his chest. Emily remained in place for one more second. Then she sat, not because she accepted the threat, but because Lucy was watching. Derek turned back to Caleb. I can offer you a travel voucher. I do not want a voucher. $300. No, $500. You are treating this as a negotiation. I am attempting to resolve a service issue. There is no service issue. There is a valid ticket you do not want to honor. Derek leaned closer. I am trying to prevent this flight from being delayed because one passenger refuses to cooperate. Caleb looked beyond him at Vivian. She is assigned a 3D. Vivian's expression remained cold. Derek lowered his voice. Ms. Blackwell represents a significant commercial relationship. Lucy heard him. Caleb saw it in the way her eyes moved toward Vivian's folder. Thank you, Caleb said. Derek looked confused. For what for? Finally stating the real operational requirement. Derek straightened. That is not what I said, it is what you meant. Monica touched Derek's arm and spoke quietly. We should move forward. Derek nodded. He looked at Caleb. Mr. Morgan, you have two choices. Accept the reassignment or be removed by airport security. Lucy gripped Caleb's hand. The threat hung in the cabin. No one spoke. Caleb looked at Derek's identification card. Derek Lawson, Terminal Operations Manager. He looked at Monica's badge. Monica Hayes, Senior Flight Attendant. He repeated both names silently. Then he turned toward Lucy. Her face was pale. Dad, she whispered, maybe we should go. Caleb felt every watching eye around them. Some passengers looked sympathetic. Some looked impatient. A few looked relieved that the humiliation belonged to someone else. Lucy swallowed. Everybody thinks we are causing trouble. No, they are looking at us. They are looking because something is happening. Maybe if we leave it will stop. Caleb brushed a strand of hair from her face. You never have to apologize for standing where you have every right to stand. Her eyes filled. I do not want you to get arrested. The words nearly shattered his restraint. Emily rose halfway from her seat. Derek turned toward her immediately. She sat again but leaned forward. No one is arresting your father, Lucy. Derek glared at her. Emily ignored him. He has done nothing wrong. Lucy looked at her. You saw the tickets? Yes. And they were ours, yes. Vivian gave an impatient laugh. This is becoming ridiculous. Emily turned her head. No, it became ridiculous when you decided wanting a seat gave you ownership of it. Vivian's assistant stared at the floor. Derek stepped between them. That is enough. Monica lifted her tablet. I have processed the reassignment. Caleb looked at the screen. His name had disappeared from seat 1A. Vivian Blackwell now occupied it. Lucy remained in 1B. Caleb's status showed an economy cabin code with no assigned seat. He read the small field beside the modification. Voluntary acceptance. A strange stillness came over him. Did you mark that change as voluntary? Monica turned the tablet away. The reassignment is complete. I asked whether you recorded my consent. You stood up. I stood because your manager threatened to call security. You are continuing to argue. No, I am asking whether you falsified the reason for the change. Derek moved closer. Be careful with that accusation. Caleb looked at him. You approved it. Derek's eyes flickered toward the tablet. It was the first time he appeared uncertain. Monica spoke quickly. The passenger complied with the reassignment. I have not accepted any reassignment. You are no longer seated. I stood to comfort my daughter. Mr. Morgan, this conversation is finished. Caleb watched Monica's thumb move toward the screen again. Do not alter the record further. She gave him a disbelieving look. You do not have authority over this system. No, Caleb said quietly. But every change you make has a timestamp. Monica froze, only for a second. Then she locked the tablet. Derek pointed toward the aircraft door. "Leave the cabin." Caleb folded his boarding pass once, then again. He placed it on the armrest of seat 1A. Lucy slowly put her sketchbook into her backpack. Her hands shook so badly that she missed the zipper. Emily stepped forward before anyone could stop her. "May I help?" Lucy nodded. Emily closed the bag and placed it gently on Lucy's shoulders. Then she reached into her own purse and removed a small white card. She offered it to Caleb. "My number is on there. I saw everything." Caleb accepted it. "You may miss your flight. That does not change what I saw." Derek exhaled sharply. "Dr. Carter, return to your seat." Emily kept her eyes on Caleb. I will give a statement." Caleb looked at her card. Emily Carter, Pediatric Physical Therapy. He placed it carefully in his wallet. "Thank you." For a moment the cabin noise faded. Caleb saw warmth in her expression, but no pity. She was not looking at his coat, his watch, or the seat he had lost. She was looking at him. Lucy slipped her hand into his. They stepped into the aisle. Vivian moved aside just enough to let them pass. Her perfume filled the narrow space. As Caleb guided Lucy toward the door, Vivian looked at the empty seat. Finally, Emily stared at her. Vivian placed one hand on the headrest of 1A. Then she spoke loudly enough for the front cabin to hear. "Next time, buy a ticket that matches your place in the world." Lucy stopped. Caleb felt her hand tighten around his. He turned not toward Vivian, but toward Monica. "A seat can be replaced." His eyes moved to the locked tablet. A false passenger record is harder to explain. Derek gave an impatient gesture. "Keep moving," Caleb obeyed. He and Lucy stepped through the aircraft door and into the jet bridge. Behind them, Monica announced that the seating issue had been resolved. The words followed them into the narrow corridor. The jet bridge was colder than the cabin. Rain tapped against its metal walls. The aircraft hummed behind them, a low vibration that Lucy could feel beneath her shoes. A gate employee stood near the terminal end holding a handheld device. Derek followed Caleb out. "Wait here while we locate seats." Caleb looked back toward the plane. "You said the reassignment was complete. We are finding an accommodation. You changed the record before finding two seats together." Derek ignored the question. He spoke to the gate employee. "Check the remaining economy inventory." She tapped through several screens. "I have one seat in row 23 and another in row 31. Keep looking. Those are the only open seats. Check blocked inventory." The employee glanced at Lucy. "The blocked seats are for passengers who may need assistance." Derek lowered his voice. "Use whatever is available." Caleb heard him. "So now another passenger may lose a seat." Derek turned. "We are trying to help you. You are trying to hide the consequence of your decision." Derek's face hardened. "You need to stop speaking to employees as if you run this airport." Caleb looked at him calmly. "I asked her not to remove someone else." The gate employee kept her eyes on the device. Lucy stood close to Caleb, both hands wrapped around the straps of her backpack. Through the open aircraft door, she could see Vivian settling into seat 1A. The folded boarding pass remained on the armrest beneath Vivian's hand. Lucy looked away. Caleb crouched beside her. "You are safe, I know." "You did nothing wrong, I know." But her voice said she did not. She looked toward the cabin again. "Why did you not tell them Caleb knew what she meant?" He glanced at Derek, who was speaking urgently into his radio. Then he looked at his daughter. "Tell them who you are." The question carried no pride. Lucy was not asking why he had refused to use an impressive title. She was asking why he had allowed strangers to humiliate him when she believed he had the power to stop them. Caleb rested one hand on her shoulder. "Because if they respect us only after they learn I have power, then they never respected us at all." Lucy pressed her lips together. "But they made everyone think we lied." Caleb looked toward the passengers inside the cabin. Some still watched through the doorway. Truth does not become weaker because a room refuses to recognize it. Lucy looked at the floor. "What happens to the presentation if we miss the flight? We will find another way. And the memorial, we will find another way. You always say that, because there usually is one." She leaned into him. Caleb wrapped one arm around her. Over her shoulder, he saw the gate employee's screen. His original seat assignment was gone. His name sat beneath an economy status code. Beside it was the word voluntary. Lucy's record remained attached to seat 1B. The system now showed a father without a seat and a child sitting alone in first class. Caleb stood. "Do not make any more changes." The gate employee looked at him. Derek stepped between them. "The internal record is not your concern. It contains my name and my daughter's name. We are correcting it. No, preserve it." Derek laughed once. "You do not give instructions here." Caleb held his gaze. "Who authorized the consent code?" Derek's expression changed. "I approve the reassignment." "That was not my question." Monica appeared in the aircraft doorway. She looked from Caleb to Derek. The boarding process had stopped completely. Passengers remained trapped in the aisle behind her. Derek spoke more quietly. "This has gone far enough." Caleb did not answer. Footsteps echoed from the terminal side of the jet bridge. 3 people were approaching quickly. The man in front wore a dark suit beneath an airport operations vest. He was speaking to the 2 supervisors beside him, but his words stopped when he saw Caleb standing beneath the harsh overhead lights. Jonathan Price slowed so suddenly that one of the supervisors nearly walked into him. His eyes moved to Lucy's frightened face, then to Derek, then to the open aircraft door. The color left his face. Chairman Morgan Jonathan Price's voice seemed to stop the air inside the jet bridge. Chairman Morgan Derek turned toward him. For 1 second he looked annoyed by the interruption. Then the meaning of the words reached him. His face emptied. The gate employee lowered the handheld device. Monica remained in the aircraft doorway, one hand still resting against the frame. Behind her, passengers leaned into the aisle, trying to see what had changed. Jonathan stepped closer. He looked at Caleb's coat, then at Lucy, then at the open aircraft door. "What happened?" Caleb did not answer immediately. Lucy was still pressed against his side. He placed one hand over hers. Jonathan looked toward Derek. "Why is the chairman standing outside the aircraft?" Derek opened his mouth. No sound came out. Monica stepped into the jet bridge. There was a seating dispute. Jonathan's eyes moved to her. A dispute. An operational reassignment. Caleb looked at the gate employee's screen. "Lock the passenger record." Jonathan turned toward him. "Caleb, I need to understand what happened. You will." Caleb pointed toward the device. "First lock the reservation record. No edits, no corrections. Preserve every version." Jonathan stared at him for half a second. Then he turned to one of the supervisors. "Call operations control. Freeze the flight record and employee access history." The supervisor reached for his radio. Derek stepped forward. "That is not necessary." Jonathan looked at him. "Why not? We are correcting the assignment now." "No," Caleb said. "You are not." Derek forced a nervous smile. "Mr. Morgan, this was a misunderstanding. We were already finding seats for you and your daughter." Caleb studied him. "You recorded that I voluntarily accepted a move?" Derek glanced at Monica. She looked away. Jonathan's expression changed. "You did what?" Monica tightened her grip on the tablet. "The passenger complied with the reassignment." Caleb turned toward her. "I stood after your manager threatened to call security. That was not a threat." Derek spoke quickly. "It was a standard warning given to passengers who refuse crew instructions." Jonathan looked at Caleb. "Did they verify your seat? Yes. And Lucy's yes. And Ms. Blackwell's yes." Jonathan looked past Monica into the cabin. Vivian remained in seat 1A, one arm resting against the window. She was watching the gathering in the jet bridge with visible irritation. Caleb continued. "My ticket showed 1A, Lucy's showed 1B. Ms. Blackwell was assigned to 3D. Jonathan's gaze returned to Monica. Why was he moved? Monica swallowed. There was an operational need. What need? She hesitated. Derek answered for her. We were trying to manage a priority corporate client without delaying departure. Jonathan stared at him. That is not an operational need. Derek's voice became defensive. Blackwell Capital is reviewing a major travel agreement. Ms. Hayes believed the situation could be resolved without affecting anyone. Caleb looked down at Lucy. Her eyes stayed fixed on the floor. No one, he asked. Derek followed his gaze and seemed to realize what he had said. That is not what I meant. Caleb turned toward the gate device. Show me the current passenger record. Derek moved between him and the screen. That information is internal. Jonathan's voice hardened. Step aside. Derek did not move at first. Jonathan repeated himself. Step aside. Derek finally shifted. The gate employee held out the device with both hands. Caleb looked at the screen. His name appeared beneath an economy cabin code with no assigned seat. The record carried a notation stating that the change had been accepted voluntarily. Lucy remained listed in 1B. Vivian now occupied 1A. Caleb pointed to the screen. Who entered the consent code? Monica looked at Derek. Derek looked at Monica. Jonathan answered quietly. The system will show us. Caleb nodded. Who approved the reassignment? Derek cleared his throat. I did. Did you speak with me before approving it? I spoke with Monica. That was not my question. Derek glanced at the growing group behind Jonathan. No. Did you review my boarding pass? I saw it. Did you open the reservation history? No. Did you verify Ms. Blackwell's assigned seat? I relied on the cabin supervisor. Did you approve the separation of a 10-year-old child from her only parent? Derek's jaw tightened. We were still looking for seats together. After changing the record. We were trying to keep the flight on schedule. Caleb looked at Jonathan. Does the current cabin map match the people physically occupying those seats? Jonathan's expression became grave. No. Has the captain received the final passenger verification? Not yet. Can the system now distinguish between a valid change and a false one? Jonathan glanced at the frozen device. Not until compliance reviews the activity log. Derek stepped closer. This is being exaggerated. We know exactly who is on the plane. Caleb looked at him. Do you? Derek frowned. We have scanned every boarding pass, and your staff changed the seat record after boarding. A seat is not a passenger identity. No, but a verified seat assignment is part of the record your crew uses to locate a passenger during service emergencies, medical events, and evacuations. Derek crossed his arms. That can be corrected in seconds. Caleb turned toward the gate employee. What else changed when Monica selected voluntary acceptance? The employee hesitated. Jonathan nodded to her. Answer him. She looked at the screen. The reservation status changed from confirmed premium to accepted reaccommodation, and Lucy, she remained confirmed in 1B, so the record indicates that I agreed to travel separately from my daughter. The employee nodded slowly. Yes. Lucy looked up at Caleb. Her face tightened. Caleb placed one hand on her shoulder. Derek exhaled. We were fixing that. You were creating another change on top of the first one. We had 2 available economy seats, in different rows. Derek did not respond. Caleb looked at Jonathan. Freeze the aircraft release? Jonathan drew a slow breath. The supervisors beside him exchanged a glance. Derek stepped forward. You cannot suspend a flight over this. Caleb's eyes remained on Jonathan. Freeze it. Jonathan reached for his phone. Derek moved closer. Jonathan, think about the consequences. We have a full aircraft morning connections, business travelers, families. A suspension will create hours of disruption. Jonathan looked at Caleb. Caleb answered before he could speak. A delay can be repaired. He glanced toward Monica's locked tablet. A falsified record cannot be ignored because the schedule is inconvenient. Derek lowered his voice. This is personal. Caleb turned toward him. What is personal? You were embarrassed in front of your daughter. Yes. You lost your seat. Yes. And now you are using your authority to punish an entire flight. Caleb looked past him into the cabin. Passengers remained seated. Some held their phones toward the open door. Others whispered. Emily stood beside row 2, watching Lucy through the doorway. Caleb looked back at Derek. I am not asking for my seat. Derek blinked. I am asking whether this aircraft can be released while the company cannot verify which passenger changes were legitimate. Jonathan spoke into his phone. Operations control, this is Jonathan Price at Gate C-19. Place Flight 814 on full hold. Freeze the release and lock the manifest history. A pause followed. Yes. Chairman authorization. Derek stared at him. Jonathan ended the call. The flight is suspended. The words settled over the jet bridge. Inside the cabin, Monica's tablet produced a warning tone. She looked down. A red message appeared across the screen. Access restricted. She tapped it again. The same message returned. Vivian stood from seat 1A. What is happening? Monica turned toward her. Ground operations has placed the flight on hold. Why, I have not been given the full reason. Vivian moved into the aisle. This flight was already delayed because of him. She pointed through the doorway toward Caleb. Caleb did not react. Jonathan looked toward one of the supervisors. Contact Sarah Whitmore. Tell her to come to the gate with compliance and legal support. The supervisor nodded and moved toward the terminal. Derek followed him with his eyes. You are bringing compliance here. Jonathan looked at him. Yes, this could be handled locally. Apparently it was handled locally. Derek's face tightened. Caleb turned to the gate employee. Do not change either reservation. She nodded quickly. Yes, sir. Lucy looked toward the aircraft. Are we still going to Boston? Caleb crouched beside her. I do not know yet. Her eyes moved to the passengers waiting inside. Are they angry at us? Some of them may be. Because they have to wait, yes. Lucy looked down. I did not want anyone else to miss anything. Caleb brushed his thumb across the back of her hand. This is not your fault. Emily appeared in the aircraft doorway. Monica turned. Dr. Carter, return to your seat. Emily looked at the locked tablet. You cannot even access the passenger list. That does not change crew instructions. Emily ignored her and looked at Jonathan. Are you with the airline? Jonathan nodded. Jonathan Price, Regional Operations President. I witnessed the entire incident. Derek closed his eyes for a moment. Emily continued. Mr. Morgan showed a valid boarding pass. His daughter was assigned beside him. Ms. Blackwell's ticket showed a different seat. Monica confirmed all 3 assignments before she changed her explanation. Jonathan took out his phone. I will need a formal statement. You can have one. Emily stepped fully into the jet bridge. Monica moved toward her. You need to remain on board until instructed otherwise. Emily looked at Lucy. She is frightened. Caleb met Emily's eyes. There was concern in them, but no shock. She had heard Jonathan call him chairman. She understood more than she had before. Still, she came to Lucy first. Emily crouched a few feet away. May I sit with you? Lucy nodded. Emily sat on the narrow ledge along the jet bridge wall. Lucy moved closer to her. Caleb watched as Emily took the model airplane from Lucy's hands before the girl accidentally dropped it. One wing had come loose again. Emily held it carefully. Still with us, she said. Lucy wiped her face. Barely. That counts. Jonathan stepped beside Caleb. He kept his voice low. I should have known you were on this flight. That was the point. You were conducting an inspection. I was traveling with my daughter. Jonathan glanced at Lucy. Then he looked toward the aircraft. Why did you not call me? Caleb's expression remained still. Because I wanted to see whether the system could correct itself. Jonathan looked at Monica and Derek. It did not. No. Behind them, the gate area had begun to fill. Operations staff arrived first. Then 2 members of airport management. They waited near the terminal entrance, uncertain whether to approach. Jonathan issued instructions. Secure the gate desk. No one edits the record. Preserve the camera footage from the gate, the jet bridge, and the forward cabin if available. One supervisor wrote quickly. Notify the captain that the cabin may need to be cleared for independent passenger verification. Derek turned sharply. You are going to deplane everyone. Jonathan looked at Caleb. Caleb asked the gate employee another question. Has the final cabin verification been completed? Can Monica access the seat map? No. Can the crew verify whether any other last-minute changes were entered through the same account? Not while the record is locked. Jonathan looked toward the aircraft. We need to reconstruct the manifest before release. Derek shook his head. You can do that with everyone seated. Jonathan answered calmly. No. We need a clean verification. Every passenger must be checked against the original boarding data and the current physical count. Vivian had moved closer to the doorway. She heard the exchange. You are not removing an entire aircraft because one man is unhappy. Jonathan turned toward her. Ms. Blackwell, return to your seat until the captain makes an announcement. Vivian stared at him. Do you know who I am? Jonathan's eyes moved briefly to Caleb. Yes. Vivian seemed satisfied. Then explain to your chairman that Blackwell Capital is preparing to award a major contract. Jonathan said nothing. Caleb looked at her. You are assigned to 3D. Vivian's expression froze. She studied his face. The title she had heard began to settle into place. You are the chairman. Caleb did not answer. Her eyes moved to Jonathan, then to Derek, then back to Caleb. The color in her face shifted. She gave a short laugh. No, that is not possible. Lucy looked up from beside Emily. Vivian's gaze fell on the worn coat, the scuffed shoes, and the old watch. She seemed offended by the contradiction. "You are Caleb Morgan, yes." Vivian stared. The assistant behind her lowered his head. For the first time that morning, Vivian had no immediate response. Then she recovered. If that is true, then this entire situation can be fixed. Caleb looked at her. "How you take your seat. I return to mine. The flight leaves." "You believe that fixes it?" "It was a service misunderstanding. You demanded a seat that was not yours. I requested an accommodation. You told the crew I did not belong in the cabin." Vivian glanced at the passengers behind her. "I was frustrated. You suggested my clothes proved my ticket was false. That is not what I said." Emily rose from the ledge. "Yes, it is." Vivian turned toward her. Emily held Lucy's model airplane against her chest. "You said someone dressed like him could not have paid for the seat." Vivian looked at Caleb. "Your employee chose how to handle the matter." Caleb nodded. "Yes." The answer seemed to surprise her. "And the company will examine that choice." Vivian relaxed slightly. Then Caleb continued. "It will also examine the pressure you applied before she made it." Vivian's expression hardened again. "I never ordered anyone to change a record. Compliance will determine what you said." A new group entered the jet bridge. Sarah Whitmore walked in front carrying a laptop bag and a sealed document case. She wore a dark green suit and moved with the focused calm of someone who never wasted motion. Two compliance investigators followed her. Jonathan met them halfway. Sarah looked first at Caleb, then Lucy, then the aircraft, Chairman Morgan. Sarah. "I was told there may be an unauthorized passenger record change." "There is." Sarah turned to Jonathan. "Has the system been locked?" "Yes. Employee access preserved. Cabin video requested." Sarah looked at Derek and Monica. "Who made the change?" Monica's face had gone pale. "I entered the reassignment." "Who approved it?" Derek answered. "I did." Sarah took a small recorder from her bag and switched it on. "The operational review begins now. No employee involved in the change may access any airline system until this examination is complete." Derek stepped forward. "Sarah, this is unnecessary. We can explain. You will." She looked toward Monica. "Hand over the tablet." Monica hesitated. Sarah held out her hand. The tablet. Monica surrendered it. Sarah passed it to an investigator who placed it inside a protective sleeve. Derek stared. "You are treating this like a criminal scene." Sarah met his eyes. "I am preserving evidence." The captain's voice came through the aircraft speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are currently under a mandatory ground operations hold. Please remain seated while we receive further instructions." A wave of murmurs moved through the cabin. Vivian looked at her watch. "This cannot continue." Sarah glanced toward her. "Who are you?" Vivian seemed insulted by the question. "Vivian Blackwell." Sarah turned to one of the investigators. "Record her name and current seat." The investigator checked a printed sheet. "Original assignment, 3D. Current record 1A." Sarah looked at Vivian. "Did you request a seat change?" "Yes. Did Mr. Morgan agree?" Vivian folded her arms. "He eventually left." That was not the question. Vivian looked toward Monica. She handled it. Sarah turned to Monica. "Did Mr. Morgan consent?" Monica's lips parted. Derek answered quickly. He complied after being instructed to move. Sarah looked at him. "Did he consent?" Derek said nothing. Sarah opened her laptop on a narrow operations stand. "Begin reconstruction." One investigator connected a secure device. The other retrieved printed boarding data from the gate desk. Caleb stood beside Jonathan watching the process. Lucy remained with Emily. The model airplane rested across Emily's knees while she pressed the loose wing back into position. Lucy looked toward Caleb. "Dad." He walked over. She lowered her voice. "Is everyone going to have to get off? Possibly. They are going to hate us." Emily looked at Caleb. He sat beside Lucy. "Some people may be angry." "Then why are we doing it?" Caleb glanced at the aircraft door. "Because the crew needs to know that the information they are using is true." Lucy looked confused. "It is just a seat." "It started with a seat." He pointed gently toward the gate device. "Now the record says I agreed to something I did not agree to. It says you stayed on the plane without me. If someone can change that because a passenger is important, we have to know what else they were willing to change." Lucy looked at Emily. Emily nodded. Your dad is making sure they check everything. Lucy leaned against Caleb. He put one arm around her. Sarah called Jonathan over. The original boarding file shows no duplicate assignment, no equipment change, no accessibility request, no cabin restriction. Jonathan looked toward Monica. Sarah continued. The change was entered from Hayes's account at 6:43. Consent code marked voluntary. Lawson approved it 47 seconds later. Derek moved closer. That does not show the full context. Sarah did not look at him. We will collect context after the physical passenger verification. She turned to Jonathan. The cabin must be cleared. Derek's face tightened. Sarah. She looked at him. If the current seat map cannot be trusted, and the consent record may be false, we need an independent match between the original scan list and every person who boarded. We know who they are. You know who the system says they are. Derek glanced at the full aircraft. This will create chaos. Sarah closed the laptop. Then manage it professionally. Jonathan picked up the interphone handset near the door. He spoke quietly with the captain. Inside the cabin, passengers began sitting straighter. Vivian returned to seat 1A but did not fasten her belt. She placed one hand over Caleb's folded boarding pass still resting on the armrest. Jonathan ended the call. The captain will make the announcement. Monica stood near the wall without her tablet. For the first time, she looked less like the person controlling the cabin and more like someone waiting to be told where to stand. 5 minutes had passed since Caleb and Lucy stepped out of the aircraft. The announcement tone sounded. The captain's voice filled the cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, due to a mandatory passenger verification review, this aircraft cannot continue boarding or prepare for departure. Please collect all personal belongings and exit through the forward door. Gate personnel will provide further instructions. For a second, no one moved. Then the cabin erupted. Passengers called out questions. A man near row 4 asked whether there was a security threat. Someone farther back demanded to know about a connection in Washington. Overhead compartments opened. Bags shifted. Vivian remained seated. Monica entered the cabin. Please collect your belongings and exit in an orderly manner. Vivian looked up at her. I am not leaving. Everyone must leave. I have already been seated twice because of your incompetence. Monica's face tightened. This is a ground operations instruction. Then tell ground operations I am staying here. Monica looked toward the doorway. Sarah stood beside Caleb with the reconstructed passenger list in her hand. Ms. Blackwell, Sarah called. Vivian turned. This aircraft is being cleared. You will exit with the other passengers. Vivian stood slowly. She lifted Caleb's folded boarding pass from the armrest. For a moment, she looked at the printed name. Caleb Morgan. She placed it back down. Passengers began filing into the jet bridge. The man who had recorded the confrontation held his phone at his side. The woman who had looked away earlier avoided Caleb's eyes. Others stared openly at Jonathan, Sarah, and the executives gathered around the man they had watched leave the cabin. Emily stood beside Lucy. As each passenger stepped forward, compliance staff checked the original boarding scan and directed them toward the gate lounge. Complaints filled the corridor. Caleb did not answer them. He stayed beside Lucy. Vivian stepped out near the end. Her assistant followed with the black leather case. She stopped when she saw the line of senior managers waiting for Caleb's instructions. Derek stood several feet away, pale and silent. Monica exited last. The aircraft door remained open behind her. Sarah looked at the cleared cabin. Then she turned toward Caleb. We have every original passenger accounted for. Caleb nodded. Sarah opened the system record on her laptop. The physical count matches the scan list. She looked at Monica. The seat record does not. Derek stepped toward Caleb. His voice dropped. If I had known who you were, I would have handled this differently. Caleb looked at him for a long moment. That is the first honest thing you have said. Relief flickered across Derek's face. Then Caleb continued. And it is exactly why you should not be responsible for passengers. Derek's relief vanished. Sarah rotated the laptop toward the group. A time-stamped sequence of entries filled the screen. She pointed to the first modification. This was not a seat reassignment. Her finger moved to the consent code. This was a falsified consent record. Sarah's words settled over the gate area with the weight of a verdict. This was a falsified consent record. No one moved. The complaints from the displaced passengers faded into a low murmur. Even the people who had been demanding immediate rebooking turned toward the laptop. Monica stood several feet away with her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Derek remained near the jet bridge wall. Vivian watched Sarah with the rigid expression of someone who believed a confident denial could still restore control. Sarah enlarged the reservation history. The original record appeared first. Caleb Morgan, seat 1A. Lucy Morgan, seat 1B. Both passengers had checked in normally. Both boarding passes had been scanned without warning. No duplicate seat assignment appeared anywhere in the file. Sarah opened Vivian's reservation. Vivian Blackwell, seat 3D, confirmed. No upgrade request had been approved. No service note promised her the first row. No employee had authorized a change before she entered the cabin. Sarah looked at Monica. When did Mr. Morgan agree to leave seat 1A? Monica swallowed. He stood up and walked out of the cabin. That happened after the change was entered. Monica's eyes moved toward Derek. Sarah followed her gaze. Mr. Lawson cannot answer for you. Monica looked down. The situation was escalating. Sarah waited. Monica took a breath. I believed his decision to stand demonstrated that he had accepted the reassignment. Caleb's expression did not change. Emily stood beside Lucy, holding the model airplane carefully against her coat. Sarah tapped the screen. The consent code was entered at 6:43 and 12 seconds. She opened another window. Airport video shows Mr. Morgan standing at 6:44 and 9 seconds. Monica said nothing. You recorded consent before he left the seat. I knew he would comply. Sarah looked at her. Compliance is not consent. Monica's eyes filled with fear. I was trying to prevent a confrontation. You created one. I was trying to keep the cabin calm. You threatened to separate a child from her father. That was never the intention. Sarah turned the laptop slightly so Monica could see Lucy's reservation. Then explain why Lucy Morgan remained in seat 1B while her father was moved into an unassigned economy status. Monica looked at the screen. We had not finished finding seats. You completed the record change before locating them. We were going to correct it. After departure, no. When Monica could not answer. Sarah closed the reservation window and opened the employee access log. Your account removed Mr. Morgan from 1A. Your account transferred Ms. Blackwell into that seat. Your account selected voluntary acceptance. She looked toward Derek. Your manager account approved all 3 actions 47 seconds later. Derek lifted his chin. I relied on the cabin supervisor's assessment. Sarah's voice remained calm. Did you speak to Mr. Morgan before approving the change? No. Did you speak to his daughter? No. Did you inspect Ms. Blackwell's boarding pass? I was told where she was assigned. Did you open the original reservation? No. Did you request an operational reason? Derek hesitated. Monica described Ms. Blackwell as a priority passenger. Sarah looked at him. That is a commercial description. I asked for the operational reason. Derek's jaw tightened. The cabin needed to be settled. Was there a safety concern? No. Was seat 1A damaged? No. Was there a medical accommodation? No. Was there an aircraft change? No. Was Mr. Morgan disruptive before he was asked to move? Derek glanced toward the passengers. He was refusing instructions. That happened after Monica decided to remove him. Derek looked at Sarah. He challenged her in front of the cabin. Caleb spoke for the first time. I asked her to read the ticket. Derek turned toward him. You questioned her authority, I questioned her explanation. You kept the boarding line from moving. Miss Blackwell was standing in the aisle. She was attempting to reach her seat. Her seat was 3D. A few passengers murmured. Derek looked around as if the crowd itself had become hostile. Sarah closed the employee log. We will interview each of you separately. Derek stepped closer. There is no need to turn a service complaint into a disciplinary spectacle. Sarah met his eyes. This review became necessary when the passenger data stopped reflecting the truth. It was one seating code. It was a false statement entered into an official record. No one was harmed. Lucy looked up. The words reached her before Derek seemed to realize she could hear them. Emily placed a gentle hand on Lucy's shoulder. Caleb stared at Derek. No one. Derek looked at the child. For a moment he appeared embarrassed. Then he returned his attention to Sarah. I meant physically. Sarah did not soften. Passenger safety is not limited to visible injury. She signaled to one of the investigators. Take Mr. Lawson to the conference room near gate C-17. Remove his system credentials before the interview begins. Derek's face changed. You are suspending my access immediately. I manage this terminal, not during this investigation. Derek looked at Jonathan. You are allowing this. Jonathan's voice was quiet. You approved a record without reviewing the passenger's ticket. I trusted my senior flight attendant. You also threatened security without hearing his side. Derek shook his head. You know the pressure we are under. Every delayed departure becomes a report. Every corporate complaint reaches 3 departments. I made the fastest decision available. Jonathan's expression hardened. You made the easiest decision available. The investigator approached Derek. Derek looked at Caleb. Can we speak privately now, please? The investigation will give you a chance to explain. I am asking for 1 minute. Caleb looked at Lucy, then he looked back at Derek. You had several minutes inside the cabin. Derek's face tightened. The investigator directed him toward the gate corridor. Derek walked away without another word. Monica watched him leave. Her breathing had become shallow. Sarah turned to her. You will be interviewed separately as well. Monica glanced toward the passengers. Do I have to walk through them? Sarah studied her for a moment. Yes. Monica looked down at her uniform. For the first time, she seemed aware of every eye fixed on her. She had moved through the cabin with confidence only minutes earlier. Now she crossed the gate area. Slowly, her identification badge already removed, her hands empty without the tablet. No one spoke to her. That silence followed her into the terminal. Vivian stepped forward as soon as Monica disappeared. This has gone far enough. Sarah looked at her. We have not begun your interview. I am not an employee. No. Then you have no authority to detain me. No one is detaining you. Vivian reached for her assistant's arm. We are leaving. Sarah turned toward airport security. Ms. Blackwell may leave the gate area, but she cannot return to the aircraft or enter the restricted boarding corridor until the review is complete. Vivian stopped. You are removing me from the flight, Jonathan answered. Yes, on what grounds? Interference with crew decision-making, abusive conduct toward another passenger, and involvement in an unauthorized seat change. I did not touch your system. No, Sarah said. You applied pressure to the employee who did. Vivian laughed. Pressure. Her voice grew louder. I asked for the service I was promised. Sarah reopened Vivian's reservation. You were promised seat 3D. My company was promised priority treatment. Priority treatment does not include another passenger's confirmed seat. You do not understand the value of the account. Caleb looked at her. Vivian turned toward him. There was anger in her face now, but also disbelief. She still had not fully accepted that the man she had dismissed could make decisions affecting her. Blackwell Capital spends millions on travel every year, she said. Your sales team has spent 8 months pursuing us. I know. Then you know what this contract means. Yes. It means revenue international expansion and hundreds of employees choosing your airline every week. Caleb said nothing. Vivian stepped closer. You are prepared to throw that away because your feelings were hurt. Emily's eyes narrowed. Caleb remained still. My feelings did not alter the passenger record. You are making this personal. You made it personal when you decided my clothing gave you more authority than my ticket. Vivian lowered her voice. I was frustrated. You said someone like me did not belong in that cabin. I did not know who you were. Caleb held her gaze. That sentence does not help you. Vivian's expression flickered. She glanced at the passengers gathered nearby. Several phones were pointed toward her. She looked back at Caleb. You could end this now. How restore my seat? Reboard the passengers. Issue an apology for the delay? To whom? To everyone. And what would the apology say? Vivian hesitated. That the airline mishandled a routine service matter. Caleb looked toward Sarah's laptop. This was not routine. You are the chairman. You decide what it becomes. No, the evidence decides what it is. Vivian's face hardened. You are emotional because your daughter witnessed the incident. Caleb's voice grew quieter. My daughter's presence made it more painful. He looked at Lucy. It did not make the record more false. Vivian followed his eyes. Lucy stood beside Emily with her backpack still on, as if she had not yet trusted the airport enough to put it down. Caleb continued. The same record would be false if the passenger were a mechanic, a teacher, a nurse, or someone flying for the first time. Vivian crossed her arms. Do not pretend this has nothing to do with your position. It has everything to do with my position. She seemed satisfied. Then Caleb finished. My position requires me to decide whether this company values money more than the rules protecting its passengers. Vivian stared at him. Caleb looked toward Jonathan. End the Blackwell Capital negotiations. Jonathan did not hesitate. I will notify the sales team. Vivian's composure broke. You cannot do that. Caleb looked at her. I just did. You have no idea how your board will respond. They can respond to me. My attorneys will contact you. Sarah will provide the appropriate office. Vivian turned toward Sarah. You heard him. This is retaliation. Sarah closed the laptop. No. The airline is declining a commercial relationship after a documented attempt to influence operational decisions. I never asked anyone to falsify anything. That will be included in the review. I asked for a seat. You asked an employee to prove she understood the needs of important clients. Vivian looked toward Monica's abandoned position near the door. She chose the method. Sarah nodded. That is why she is being investigated. Vivian glanced around for support. No one stepped forward. Her assistant stood a few feet behind her, holding the leather case with both hands. Vivian looked at him. Daniel, tell them what I said. He froze. Tell them I never ordered anyone to change the record. Daniel looked at Sarah, then at Caleb. His voice was barely audible. You said the airline would remember who helped secure the contract. Vivian stared at him. That was a general statement. You told Monica the front row was a test. I was speaking figuratively. Daniel lowered his eyes. You said if she could not solve one simple problem, you would make sure the sales department knew her name. The gate area became silent again. Vivian's face lost color. You misunderstood me. Daniel said nothing. Sarah took out her recorder. Mr. Green, I will need a formal statement. Vivian turned toward him. You work for me. Daniel's grip tightened around the case. Yes, then act like it. Caleb watched the young man's face. Fear moved across it clearly. It was the same fear Caleb had seen in the passengers who lowered their eyes when Derek threatened Emily. Daniel looked at Sarah. I will give a statement. Vivian's expression became cold. You are finished at Blackwell Capital? Sarah stepped between them. Any employment action connected to his participation in this review should be discussed with your legal counsel. Vivian laughed bitterly. You are protecting him now. Sarah's voice did not change. I am preserving testimony. Security approached. Vivian looked at Caleb one last time. You think this makes you noble? Caleb said nothing. You let your daughter stand in that jet bridge crying when you could have revealed yourself at any moment. Lucy looked toward him. Vivian continued. You allowed the entire cabin to believe you were powerless, so you could catch your employees failing some private test. Emily stepped forward. That is enough. Vivian looked at her. Emily's voice remained steady. He did not create your behavior. You know nothing about him. I knew enough before anyone called him chairman. Vivian stared at her. Emily moved closer to Lucy. I knew his ticket was valid. I knew his daughter was afraid. I knew you were using your money to take something that did not belong to you. Vivian's jaw tightened. You are very brave now. I spoke before I knew his name. The passengers heard it. Caleb did too. He looked at Emily. She did not turn toward him for approval. She kept her attention on Vivian. Security directed Vivian and Daniel toward the public terminal. Daniel walked several steps behind her. As they left, a man from the passenger group raised his phone. Mr. Morgan. Caleb turned. The man appeared to be in his early 40s. He wore a dark business suit and held his phone in one hand. I recorded most of the confrontation. Sarah looked at him. May we review it? He nodded. I started when Ms. Blackwell raised her voice. He glanced at Caleb. I should have done more than record. Caleb did not answer immediately. The man lowered his eyes. I knew the ticket was probably yours. I could see the seat number when you held it up. Why did you stay quiet? Caleb asked. The man looked toward the gate. I was flying to a meeting in Boston. I thought if I got involved, they might remove me too. Emily stood nearby. The man glanced at her. She spoke up. I did not. Sarah accepted the phone. May we copy the file? Yes. An investigator connected the device to a secure tablet. The video began. Vivian's voice filled the gate area. You expect me to believe he paid for this seat? The recording showed Monica holding both tickets. It showed her looking at Vivian's assigned seat. It showed her returning the ticket and changing her tone after receiving the Blackwell Capital folder. Sarah paused the video. Go back. The investigator moved the file several seconds earlier. Vivian's assistant handed Monica the document. Vivian leaned closer. The phone microphone captured her voice. If Summit Crown wants this account, I need to see that your people understand discretion. Monica looked toward Caleb. The change in her expression was unmistakable. Sarah let the video continue. Emily's voice came through next. You already confirmed his ticket. Then Monica offered the economy seat. Then came the proposed separation. Lucy's small voice cut through the recording. Dad, did we take someone else's seat? The passengers around the laptop became still. Lucy looked down. Emily crouched beside her. You do not have to listen. Lucy shook her head. I remember. Caleb stood close enough for his shoulder to touch hers. The video continued. Derek threatened security. Vivian complained about the delay. Caleb asked for the operational reason. No one provided one. Then Vivian spoke again. Next time, buy a ticket that matches your place in the world. A woman in the passenger group covered her mouth. Another looked away. Sarah stopped the video. That file will be preserved. The man nodded. I will sign whatever you need. Caleb looked at him. Thank you for providing it. The man's expression remained troubled. I still did not help when it mattered. Caleb glanced around at the people listening. Recording evidence matters. The man waited. Caleb continued. But it is not the same as standing beside someone. The words were not cruel. That made them harder to dismiss. A woman near the window stepped forward. I laughed. Her voice trembled. Caleb looked at her. She wore a red coat and held a sleeping baby against her chest. When Ms. Blackwell made the comment about your clothes, I laughed. She looked toward Lucy. I thought it was uncomfortable, and I laughed because I did not know what else to do. Lucy watched her quietly. The woman wiped one eye. I am sorry. Another passenger spoke. I assumed you were trying to get an upgrade. A third admitted he had seen Monica's screen but convinced himself that the airline must know more than he did. The confessions began slowly. One passenger had been afraid of missing a connection. Another believed wealthy people probably had special arrangements. Someone else said the confrontation felt wrong, but not wrong enough to risk becoming involved. Caleb listened. He did not forgive them quickly to make the moment easier. He did not accuse them either. When the voices stopped, he looked toward the empty aircraft. Silence feels neutral to the person staying quiet. He turned toward Lucy. It does not feel neutral to the person standing alone. The woman with the baby lowered her head. Caleb looked back at the passengers. You will each have an opportunity to give a statement. Whether you do is your choice. Sarah signaled to her investigators. They began collecting names and contact information. Jonathan returned from a phone call. The replacement aircraft can be ready this afternoon. Several passengers protested. One man demanded an immediate departure. A woman said her son had a medical appointment in Boston. Another passenger said she would miss a funeral. Caleb listened to every complaint. He asked Jonathan to open the private lounge and provide food, rebooking support hotel rooms, and direct assistance for passengers with urgent needs. Jonathan nodded. I will arrange it, not through a general service line. No, assign a person to each affected family. Jonathan made a note. Emily looked at Caleb. You are still thinking about the memorial. He glanced at Lucy. Yes, you may miss it. Yes, and her presentation. Yes. Lucy looked at them. We can still make it. Caleb smiled faintly. We are going to try. Sarah approached with another file open. There is more. Caleb turned toward her. She lowered her voice. I searched recent complaints involving Derek's department. Jonathan stepped closer. What did you find? Sarah rotated the laptop. A list of closed cases appeared. Several involved seat disputes. One involved a mother and two children separated to accommodate members of a celebrity's staff. Another described an elderly couple pressured into accepting economy seats after a corporate traveler demanded their row. A third involved a passenger who reported being told that someone dressed like him should be grateful to be on the flight at all. Caleb read each summary. How were these resolved? Sarah opened the first file. Service voucher issued. Complaint closed. Was the family interviewed? Number witnesses, num employee statement, none attached. She opened another. The same pattern appeared. Closed without interviews, closed without supporting records, closed after a manager review. Derek Lawson's name appeared on each one. Jonathan's face darkened. How many? In the last 18 months, 11 complaints involving premium passenger favoritism passed through his office, and all were closed. 10 were closed. 1 was redirected to customer relations and never returned to compliance. Caleb scrolled through the cases. Were any children separated? 3 complaints mentioned family separation. Lucy stood close enough to hear. Caleb looked at Sarah. Reopen all of them. I already placed a hold on the files. Contact every passenger. Sarah nodded. Independent interviews, yes. Outside Derek's reporting line, yes. Jonathan looked at the screen. How did this avoid review? Sarah opened the complaint workflow. Local managers can close low-value service complaints without central compliance approval. Caleb looked at him. That changes today. Jonathan nodded slowly. Sarah continued. There are also internal employee reports. She opened a separate folder. A gate agent had reported being pressured to move a family for a professional athlete's entourage. A flight attendant had complained that Derek rewarded employees who protected corporate accounts. Another employee stated that refusing a premium customer request could result in undesirable schedules. The reports were marked as coaching issues. Caleb read the names. Who classified them that way, Derek? Jonathan stared at the list. This is not one decision. No, Sarah said. It is a pattern. Caleb looked toward the conference room where Derek was being interviewed. A pattern meant the system had learned how to hide itself. Monica had made a choice inside the cabin. Derek had approved it. But those choices had grown inside a culture that rewarded speed, silence, and commercial obedience. Caleb looked at Jonathan. When was the last time a senior executive traveled without the airport knowing? Jonathan thought for a moment. I do not know. That is the problem. Jonathan looked down. Caleb continued reading the employee reports. One name appeared twice. Evan Brooks, a junior flight attendant. The first report described pressure to change a meal record for a high-value passenger. The second described a supervisor instructing him not to document a family seating complaint. Caleb looked toward the cabin entrance. Where is Evan Brooks? Jonathan spoke to an operations supervisor. The man entered the aircraft. A few minutes later, a young flight attendant appeared. Evan stepped into the gate area cautiously. His uniform was neat, but his face was pale. He looked at Monica's empty position, then at Sarah, then at Caleb. You asked for me, Sarah nodded. Were you working the forward cabin during boarding? Yes. Did you see the original seat map? Evan hesitated. Yes. Did it show Mr. Morgan in 1A? Yes. Lucy Morgan in 1B? Yes. Vivian Blackwell in 3D? Yes. Sarah studied him. Do you have evidence beyond your memory? Evan looked toward the conference room. Caleb noticed. Your employment will not be affected for giving a truthful statement. Evan's voice was quiet. That is what the policy says. Caleb understood. What happened the last time you reported something? Evan looked at Sarah. She waited. I was told I needed to be more flexible with important customers. Who told you, Mr. Lawson? Sarah recorded the answer. Evan reached into his pocket and removed his phone. The cabin tablet froze during boarding. I took a picture of the original seat map so I could confirm passenger names and meal requests. He unlocked the phone. The image showed the front cabin before the change. Caleb Morgan 1A, Lucy Morgan 1B, Emily Carter 2C, Vivian Blackwell 3D. The timestamp appeared at the top. Evan opened a second image. The later map showed Vivian in 1A and Caleb without a seat. Sarah compared the timestamps to the access log. They match. Evan nodded. I did not know whether I was allowed to keep them. You were preserving operational information during a system failure, Sarah said. I was afraid Monica would say I violated passenger privacy. Did she know you had the images? No. Did you hear the conversation between her and Ms. Blackwell? Evan swallowed. Part of it. What did you hear Ms. Blackwell said? Blackwell Capital would remember employees who understood what executive clients needed. Anything else? Evan looked toward the terminal. She said the seat was a simple test. Sarah waited. Evan continued. She told Monica that if the airline could not solve one seating problem, it was not ready for the account. Caleb looked at him. What did Monica say? She said she would take care of it. Before she spoke to me, yes. The answer landed heavily. Monica's decision had not been an improvised response to conflict. It had begun before she examined Caleb's ticket. Evan lowered his phone. I should have said something. Emily looked at him. You are saying it now. Evan met her eyes. The tension in his shoulders eased slightly. Sarah took the phone to copy the images. Caleb looked at Evan. You filed 2 earlier concerns. Evan's face tightened. I did not know anyone had seen them. They were classified as coaching matters. He looked down. I stopped reporting things after that. Why? Because the next month, my schedule changed. I was assigned reserve shifts and late turns. Mr. Lawson said it was unrelated. Caleb glanced at Sarah. Add retaliation review. She nodded. Evan looked at Caleb. Am I suspended to know? Evan appeared confused. You preserved evidence and told the truth. I waited. You were afraid. Evan looked ashamed. Caleb continued. Courage does not always arrive before fear. Sometimes it arrives after. Evan nodded. An operations supervisor guided him toward a private room for a full statement. As he walked away, Lucy watched him. Is he in trouble? She asked. Caleb shook his head. He was scared, but he helped. Lucy thought about that. Emily sat beside her on the edge of a gate chair. The model airplane's right wing had loosened again. Emily opened her purse and removed a small roll of medical tape. Temporary repair. Lucy nodded. Emily placed the airplane carefully across her knees. Caleb watched her work. Her hands moved gently the same way they might have moved around an injured child's arm. She aligned the wing, secured the connection, and smoothed the tape. Lucy leaned closer. It does not match. No, it is white. Yes, the plane is blue. Emily considered it. Then it has a scar. Lucy looked at the small strip of tape. Scars are ugly. Emily touched the faint mark across her own hand. Sometimes. Do they always stay? Some fade? Some do not. Lucy looked at her. Does yours hurt? Not anymore. Lucy turned the airplane toward the light. The taped wing held. Caleb felt something in his chest soften. Sarah and Jonathan moved toward the conference rooms, leaving Caleb, Lucy, and Emily near the windows. For the first time since the confrontation began, the noise around them faded. Caleb sat across from Emily. You could have boarded another flight, so could you. He gave a tired smile. I own part of the airline. It is harder for me to escape. Emily smiled. Most of it. That sounds inconvenient. Today it is. Lucy leaned against Emily's shoulder, still examining the repaired wing. Caleb looked at Emily. You had no reason to risk being removed. Emily kept her eyes on the airplane. I had a reason. What was it? She glanced at Lucy, then back at Caleb. They were wrong. That has not stopped many people. No. Why did it stop you? Emily thought for a moment. My father used a wheelchair for the last 6 years of his life. Caleb listened. People spoke over him. They asked me questions about him while he was sitting beside them. They moved his chair without asking. They treated convenience as permission. She folded the medical tape and returned it to her purse. He hated needing help. He hated it more when people used that need to make decisions for him. Lucy looked at her. Did you speak up? Not always? Emily's voice softened. Sometimes I was tired. Sometimes I told myself the problem was too small. Sometimes I did not want to embarrass him. What happened? Emily looked through the rain-streaked glass. One day, a restaurant manager moved his wheelchair away from our table because another customer wanted more space. My father did not say anything until we got home. She paused. He told me silence can feel like agreement when you are the one being moved. Caleb heard the echo of his own words to the passengers. Emily looked back at him. I remembered that when I saw Lucy. Caleb held her gaze. She had defended him before she knew his name. She had seen his daughter before she saw his position. The warmth he felt was unfamiliar enough to make him look away. Lucy studied them both. Dad does that. Emily smiled. Does what? Looks away when he does not know what to say. Caleb looked at his daughter. Thank you for the analysis. You said I noticed things. Emily laughed softly. The sound moved through Caleb in a way he had not expected. It had been a long time since laughter beside him felt like an invitation rather than a memory. Sarah returned, carrying a preliminary file. Her expression ended the quiet moment. We completed the first interviews. Caleb stood. What did they say? Monica admits she knew Ms. Blackwell was assigned to 3D. She says commercial pressure influenced her decision, but she denies intending to falsify the record. And Derek, he admits approving the change without reviewing the reservation. He claims he believed the voluntary code was accurate. Does he explain the previous complaints? He says they lacked evidence and were close to prevent minor service matters from overwhelming the department. Jonathan joined them. He also admits he discouraged employees from escalating premium customer disputes. Caleb looked at Sarah. His access remained suspended. Yes. Monica's too. Yes. Sarah handed him the report. This reaches beyond the two of them. Caleb opened the file. I know. We need an independent review of the entire terminal operation. Begin it. Outside counsel. Yes. Employee protection immediate. Reopen every passenger complaint involving forced reassignment, family separation, or status-based favoritism. Sarah nodded. Jonathan looked at Caleb. The board will ask whether we can contain this. Caleb closed the report. We should not contain it. Jonathan waited. We should find all of it. The rain continued against the terminal windows. Beyond the glass, the grounded aircraft remained at the gate with its door open and its cabin empty. Lucy stood beside Emily holding the repaired model airplane. Caleb looked through the terminal at the passengers waiting for news, the employees watching from a distance, and the managers who had arrived only after his title became known. Fixing this flight is not enough. Caleb's words stayed with Jonathan and Sarah as the gate area slowly shifted from confusion into organized movement. Employees opened the private lounge. Families with children were guided inside first. Travelers with medical appointments were assigned individual agents. Hotel rooms were reserved for passengers who could not reach Boston that day. Meal vouchers were distributed, but Caleb stopped Jonathan before the usual printed forms could be handed out. No one should spend the next 6 hours calling a service line, he said. Put a person beside every problem. Jonathan nodded and began assigning managers by name. Caleb then stepped in front of the waiting passengers. Lucy stood several feet behind him beside Emily. She held the repaired airplane against her chest. The white medical tape around its wing made the model look less perfect than it had that morning, but stronger. Caleb faced the crowd without a microphone. I know some of you will miss meetings, appointments, family events, and connections, he said. The airline caused that disruption. We will not ask you to treat it as a small inconvenience simply because the issue has now reached senior management. A man near the window raised his voice. My mother is in the hospital in Boston. Caleb looked directly at him. An agent will stay with you until we find the fastest route available. If another airline can get you there sooner, Summit Crown will purchase the ticket. The man's anger did not disappear, but his shoulders lowered. Caleb continued. You should not have to know someone important for this company to take your time seriously. By early afternoon, operations located another aircraft and arrested crew. Most passengers could still reach Boston that evening. A smaller group accepted earlier seats on another carrier. The man whose mother was hospitalized left first. Sarah remained at the gate with her investigators. Monica and Derek were removed from duty pending formal review. Their employment had not been decided in the heat of the moment. Caleb insisted that every conclusion be supported by records interviews, video, and written findings. 3 weeks later, the investigation reached his office. Rain no longer covered the windows. Winter sunlight filled the boardroom at Summit Crown headquarters as Sarah placed 2 reports in front of him. Monica admitted that Vivian's contract influenced her decision, she said. She also admitted selecting voluntary acceptance because she believed a forced reassignment would require additional review. Caleb opened the first report. And Derek, he approved the change without checking the original reservation. He also closed 10 earlier complaints without interviewing passengers or employees. Jonathan sat across the table. The review found schedule retaliation against 2 workers who questioned his decisions. Evan, one of them. Caleb turned a page. The report included statements from families who had been separated, travelers who had accepted unwanted downgrades, and employees who had learned to remain silent. Sarah folded her hands. The panel recommends termination for both Monica Hayes and Derek Lawson. Caleb read the final findings twice. Proceed. There was no satisfaction in his voice. Sarah understood. Blackwell Capital contacted legal again this morning. What do they want? They offered a written apology and asked us to reopen contract discussions. Caleb closed the report. Decline the contract. Within a month, Summit Crown introduced a new passenger dignity and verification policy. No confirmed passenger could be displaced only to satisfy a famous, wealthy, or commercially valuable traveler. Any seat change involving a child required documented approval from a parent or guardian. A passenger forced to move could never be recorded as volunteering. Changes entered after boarding required verification from a second employee. Complaints involving discrimination, family separation, or pressure from elite travelers went directly to an independent ethics unit. Employees received the right to refuse instructions that violated policy without risking their schedules or performance records. Senior leaders were also required to travel several times each year without advance notice to the local station. Evan Brooks joined the first working group. When Caleb invited him into the conference room, Evan looked more nervous than he had at the gate. "You are not here because you were fearless," Caleb told him. "You are here because fear did not get the final word." Evan helped design a reporting system that allowed employees to preserve records before a local manager could close a complaint. The replacement flight to Boston left Charlotte shortly after 4 that afternoon. At the gate, Jonathan offered Caleb and Lucy seats 1A and 1B again. Before boarding began, Caleb noticed a tired mother standing near the window with a teenage boy leaning heavily against her. A rigid brace covered the boy's left leg. Every few seconds he shifted his weight and tried not to show the pain. The mother asked the gate agent whether there was any seat with more room. The agent checked the aircraft. Nothing was available. Caleb looked at Lucy. She followed his eyes. "You are going to give them our seats," she said. "I was thinking about it." Lucy hugged the model airplane. "Can I still sit with Emily?" Caleb glanced across the gate. Emily was speaking with an airline agent about her own rebooking. She looked up at that exact moment and met his eyes. "I think that can be arranged." Caleb offered the premium seats to the mother and her son. She stared at him. "I cannot pay the difference." "You do not have to." "Are you sure?" Caleb looked at the boy's brace. "Yes." Jonathan offered to find Caleb another premium row. Caleb declined. He and Lucy boarded with the other passengers and took 2 seats in the main cabin across the aisle from Emily. Lucy placed the model airplane beneath the seat and fastened her belt. Then she looked at her father. "Why did you give away the seats after fighting so hard for them?" Caleb adjusted the strap across her shoulder. "I did not fight for the chair." She waited. "I fought because they changed the rules when someone wealthier asked them to." Lucy looked toward the front where the injured boy rested with his leg extended. "So giving away the seat is different?" "Yes. How? Because it was ours to give." Lucy thought about that until the aircraft began moving. During the flight, the repaired wing loosened again. Emily reached across the aisle with the roll of medical tape. "I may be keeping your airplane together all the way to Boston." Lucy handed it over. "You are good at broken things." Emily smiled. "That is most of my job." Caleb watched her align the wing. She had changed into a soft gray sweater after the long delay. A few strands of hair had fallen loose around her face. She looked tired, but she still gave Lucy her full attention. When the wing held, Lucy opened her presentation cards. "Can I practice?" Emily nodded. "I was promised the full presentation." Lucy stood the model on the tray table. "Birds change the angle of their wings when they land," she began. "My design uses moving panels to create more lift at lower speeds." Her voice shook during the first sentence. By the third, it steadied. She explained pressure balance and how flexible structures could change shape without failing. "The wing bends," she said, "because being completely rigid can make it crack." Emily looked at Caleb. "Smart design." Caleb held her gaze. "Yes." The flight landed in Boston after dark. Snow had begun falling over the runway, soft and uncertain beneath the airport lights. At baggage claim, Emily lifted her suitcase from the carousel. Lucy stood beside her, suddenly quiet. Emily pulled on her coat. "My hotel is sending a car." Lucy looked at Caleb, then back at Emily. "Will you come to my presentation tomorrow?" Emily paused. "I do not want to interrupt your family plans." "You would not." Lucy turned toward her father. "Right?" Caleb felt the old hesitation rise inside him. For 2 years he had protected the shape of their family as if any change might erase what came before. He had told himself that he was protecting Lucy. Some nights he knew he was protecting himself. Emily waited without pushing. Caleb removed his phone from his pocket. She makes a strong invitation. Emily smiled. Does her father? He looked at Lucy. She tried to appear uninterested and failed completely. Yes, Caleb said. Her father would like you there. They exchanged numbers. Emily looked at the wedding ring beneath his shirt when the silver chain briefly caught the light. Her expression did not change. I will see you in the morning, she said. Lucy hugged her before she could step away. Emily closed her eyes for a moment and held the girl gently. Then she walked toward the exit. Caleb and Lucy watched until she disappeared into the crowd. The memorial took place that evening in a small brick church near Boston Common. Hannah's brother had placed photographs along the walls. In one, Hannah held Lucy as a baby. In another, she stood beside Caleb under a broken umbrella, both of them laughing in the rain. Lucy placed her model airplane beside a framed photograph of her mother. The repaired wing faced forward. When Caleb was invited to speak, he stood at the front of the room and looked at the people Hannah had loved. He did not deliver the speech he had prepared. He spoke about peanut butter sandwiches, lost sunglasses, unfinished science projects, and the way Hannah sang the wrong lyrics to every song. The next morning, Emily arrived at the science center carrying 2 cups of coffee and 1 hot chocolate. Lucy accepted the hot chocolate. You came. I said I would. Emily handed Caleb a coffee. I guessed plain. You guessed correctly. Lucy looked between them. I guessed that too. The showcase filled the wide hall with student projects, nervous families, and judges carrying clipboards. When Lucy's name was called, she walked to the front with the model airplane in both hands. Caleb and Emily sat beside each other in the second row. Lucy glanced at them before she began. Her voice trembled once. Then she found her rhythm. She explained how changing pressure required changing shape. She showed the judges the moving wing panels. When one judge asked about the white tape, Lucy looked at Emily. It was damaged during travel, she said. The repair is temporary, but it helped the wing keep working. The judge smiled. Sometimes temporary repairs teach us how to make the next design stronger. Lucy nodded. After the presentation, she ran toward Caleb holding a participation certificate. He lifted her into his arms. You finished it. We finished it. Emily stood beside them. Lucy corrected herself. All 3 of us finished it. Outside snow drifted between the buildings. Lucy walked several steps ahead carrying the airplane and her certificate. Emily and Caleb followed more slowly. Most men would have revealed the chairman part sooner, Emily said. Most mornings I am just Lucy's father. That was the part I liked first. Caleb looked at her. The city moved around them. Cars crossed the wet street. People hurried beneath dark coats. Lucy turned in a circle under the falling snow. For the first time in years, hope did not feel like disloyalty. It felt quiet. It felt possible. Caleb reached for Emily's hand. She let him take it. Lucy saw them and smiled, but she did not say anything. Several weeks later, Caleb stood at the back of a Summit Crown training room while employees reviewed the new passenger verification process. 3 words appeared on the screen. Verify, protect, speak. His phone vibrated. Emily had sent a message. Dinner. After Lucy's school recital, Caleb looked through the glass wall at Evan explaining the new reporting system to a group of managers. Then he looked at the photograph of Lucy's repaired airplane on his phone. He typed his answer. Would not miss it.